Let's start today with a question. Can we say what diet is best for our health? According to Dr. David Katz, researcher and public health expert from Yale University, we can. In his 2014 paper titled, Can We Say What Diet is Best for Our Health? Dr. Katz states, and now I have to awkwardly move. A diet of minimally processed foods, close to nature, predominantly plants, is decisively associated with health promotion and disease prevention, and is consistent with the salient components of seemingly distinct dietary approaches. Efforts to improve public health through diet are forestalled not from want of knowledge about the optimal feeding of Homo sapiens, but for distractions associated with exaggerated claims or our failure to convert what we reliably know into what we routinely do. Knowledge, in this case, as of yet, is not power. Would that it were so. AKA, a very fancy way of saying we know what to do, but we don't do it. Why? Why is it that people know what to eat to support their health, yet fail to do so? There are so many factors that influence our food choices, and we have come to realize that knowledge alone is not enough. This is the social ecological model for food and physical activity decisions. It's a widely accepted model that's used by health professionals to understand the many, many layers that intersect to shape a person's food choices. It's interesting to look at this model and to move between the different layers and think about how these factors influence our food and behavior decisions. Social and cultural norms and values, where did we grow up, what were the foods that were presented from a young age, the different sectors, organizations, businesses, industries, the different settings like our homes and schools, and then finally our individual factors, who we are as people and what we like. So basically what this shows us is the factors that shape our food choices and our food values is a big, complicated picture. So today, we've asked 3 public health experts to share their knowledge and experience related to food decisions, to share strategies to make healthier choices the easy choice. It's an important conversation, and we hope you'll enjoy and learn a lot. Would you please join me in welcoming Michelle Draxten from Fargo Cass Public Health, Rory Beil from Clay County Public Health, and Mary Larson from North Dakota State University.
Morning. I'll have you all start this morning by closing your eyes and imagining, if you will, that you are at your favorite restaurant and just ordered your absolute favorite meal. You're in good company and you've been waiting for this meal all week long. As your server brings it out, the aroma and the visual just makes your mouth water. And before you take that first bite, your server kindly tells you that your meal was prepared with love, it had your utmost nutritional needs in mind, and it was prepared in the bathroom. By show of hands, how many of you would still eat that meal? You can open your eyes. So this is the unfortunate reality that many breastfeeding mothers face, having to feed their baby in a bathroom or pump breast milk that they will later feed their baby. Now, the benefits of breastfeeding have been known for quite some time, and we are still learning new information. But babies who are breastfed, they have a reduced risk of illnesses and infections, obesity, SIDS, childhood cancers, and more. Moms who breastfeed have a reduced risk of breast and ovarian cancers and heart disease, among other benefits. And benefits that may be lesser known include those to the environment and businesses, like less pollution and landfill waste from formula production. And businesses experience fewer sick days, lower healthcare costs, and improved employee retention. So if we cluster all of these benefits together for the overall good of our community, we see improved health. The environment plays a role in health and eating behaviors early on, in utero in fact. So babies in the womb swallow amniotic fluid daily, and that fluid is flavored by the foods that the mother eats. So if your neighbor this morning smells a little bit like garlic, it may not be them to blame, but more so their mothers, as that early exposure to flavors helps shape good memories in a palate even before birth. Breast milk then is hugely important as well, as unlike formula, breast milk changes flavor depending on what a mother eats. A research study found that babies exposed to carrot, in utero or via breast milk, ate more carrot-flavored cereal later in life in comparison to those babies who are not exposed. So breastfed babies have a wider variety of taste preferences. What they like, or foods and flavors, are a consequence of what's familiar. They tend to be less picky, and they are more willing to try new foods. So this is great. This is great news for public health, for dietitians like myself, so mom should just breastfeed, right? Like what's the problem? In fact, over 80% of mothers leave the hospital breastfeeding, yet we see a significant decrease at 3 months. And this is a common time that moms go back to work or school, and sadly many moms actually go back even before this time. And we see an even further decrease at 6 months. And the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that babies be exclusively breastfed, meaning only breast milk, for the first 6 months of life to be able to experience these long-term health benefits. So in utero is that initial environment that influences eating behaviors, and breastfeeding is an extension of this. So how can we get these rates up for our moms and families and our overall community? What role does the environment play? Knowing that one of the main reasons that moms stop breastfeeding early or never even start is due to the fact that they will be going back to work, Fargo Cass Public Health has been working with local businesses in our community to help them create a supportive environment for their breastfeeding employees. By creating a space that's private, intrusion-free, and not a bathroom. By law, it cannot be a bathroom, yet if a mom knows that this is the only space available for her when she goes back to work, she's not gonna breastfeed very long, if at all. Having a policy in place that is supportive and sustainable and has some language in there around flexible scheduling so that a mom can have time during the day to pump. And becoming infant friendly, which is a free designation through the North Dakota Department of Health that recognizes supportive businesses. Currently in Cass County, there are 47 businesses who hold the designation. At a community level, we encourage you to assess the spaces that you frequent. Restaurants, your own workplaces, are they supportive of breastfeeding families? Why or why not? Start having conversations with your friends, colleagues, even supervisors about the benefits of breastfeeding and how the environment can support these breastfeeding moms and families. And sometimes some of the most influential voices in this category come from people who have never breastfed themselves. And be supportive of breastfeeding families in all environments, because as we just saw a few minutes ago, if none of us are willing to eat a meal that was prepared in a bathroom, how do we expect a mom to reach her breastfeeding goals by preparing a meal for her baby in a bathroom? And next we will hear from Rory.
Thanks, Michelle. Now, you said something about eating carrot-flavored cereal. I'm trying to think of what brand that is. So, good morning. Thanks for having us. And indeed, what surrounds us shapes us. And so, a quick question for you. If you had to choose at breakfast, lunch, and dinner between an apple and a chocolate chip cookie, how many of you could choose the apple at each of those meals? Well, you guys are the exception. There's still a lot of us, I couldn't. Many of us couldn't. And so part of what I want to talk about is, as we get a little bit older, that creating defaults that make it easy to make healthy choices. We'd love that choice to be between an apple and a banana. You can still have that chocolate chip cookie, but it's not going to be at eye level. It's not going to be offered to you. You might have to ask for it. And of course, the earlier we start creating these healthy defaults, including with a newborn, the easier it's going to be to create lifelong habits. And so if you can imagine for a second, checking out at a grocery store. You've checked out. What do you find at the checkout?
Candy.
Candy. And why is it? Is it there by chance? No, there's a whole load of science that says if we put this here and we place it in this position, that it's going to increase the likelihood that you are going to choose it. And so in recent years, if you see the top left where it says smarter lunchrooms, this science has been applied and is being applied locally in lunchrooms around the country. And so I want to share a little bit about this, because simply by changing the layout, the design, the prompts, it can nudge individuals to make healthier choices. Sometimes they may not even be aware of it. And so you'll see some examples, but I'm going to verbalize those. We know that in a school lunchroom, if you put the healthiest entree first, in a series of entrees, kids are significantly more likely to choose it than if it's second or third. If we have a bowl of fruit that's in a stainless steel bowl, it's less likely to be chosen from than if it's in a nice fruit bowl. If when it's time to choose milk, if there are 50 chocolate milk and 10 white milk, you have to be a freak to pick the white milk. If you change the proportion, make it a little bit more equitable, put the chocolate milk in the back, kids are significantly more likely to choose the unsweetened milk. When it comes to sweetened items, if you have to pay cash, if it's not at eye level, it decreases the likelihood that somebody's going to choose those. So we know that in our school environments that we can make subtle changes like that. At checkout, if I say, would you like a salad with that? It increases the likelihood somebody's going to ask for a salad. At McDonald's, when they say, would you like fries, they're not just being courteous. They know that that's going to increase the likelihood that you're going to want fries with what you're getting. And so our schools are working to create this environment that nudges kids to normalize those healthy choices. And so we see exciting things happening in our communities. I would challenge you, if you find yourself in a school lunchroom with your child, with a grandchild, that look at this environment and speak up. If you see things that you think might be defaults towards less healthy items, that you be a voice to kindly recommend and suggest they look at other options. Now we've done a little pilot. We've tried to apply these 5 Ps, product, price, placement, promotion, and prompting, in a non-lunch environment, but in a school concessions. Now school concessions don't win awards for healthy food items, typically. However, certainly you have the choice to choose what you would like. In a number of cases, if you played in the 4 o'clock basketball game and you need to stay to the varsity game, you're gonna have supper at your school. And so we'd like at least to have some healthy options available. I coach at Fargo Davies and I had the good fortune on a number of occasions to kind of remake their concession stands, and there's lots to remake about it. And so the first thing that we did is we created this new menu. And of course you can see the things that are featured that we want people to see first are the healthy items that are at the top of this menu. And the less healthy items, but certainly all things in moderation, right, find their way at the bottom. And then what is typically found at a concession stand, and certainly at Davies High School, is candy and the simple, inexpensive things are on the countertop that you can choose. We took them off the countertop, we put them as far away and on top of the cupboards as we could, and we put fruit in nice bowls, milk, cheese sticks, and sunflower seeds, apples. It would come right out. You could choose to get your apples sliced. So it's right there. It's easy to see. It's like the checkout at the grocery store. On the refrigerators that were behind us, we shifted all of the beverages. So we had water and milk on the top shelf, and it was eye level, and we moved everything down so it was easier to see those items before they were on the bottom. And we used a number of promotions around this to kind of normalize these healthy items. We found some of our local athletes and we featured them eating some of these foods. And then we also created a meal deal. So if we got some healthy items, cheese pizza is one of the healthier items that went. But thanks to Deb Haugen, we also had pulled turkey sandwiches, and we could get a little discount if you made a meal out of this. So we were trying to encourage those who were attending, particularly youth, to pick healthy items because it would cost a little bit less. And then our staff, who were high school track and field athletes, were trained to kind of nudge people. Would you like to make a meal out of that? Would you like a piece of fruit with that? So we could, instead of offering fries, find ways to nudge them towards making some healthier choices. And so we know that creating those healthy environments and making that normalized can help make healthy eating contagious. And those are 2 examples of things that are happening in this community to try to do that. Thanks. We now have Mary Larson.
Thank you, Rory and Michelle. So we've heard a little bit about breastfeeding-friendly environments. We've heard about child nutrition and friendly environments for youth. And now we're gonna actually enter the healthcare environments. And I want you to think about the last time that you went to see a healthcare professional. And draw that image up in your mind and think about the clinic, hospital, or other healthcare organization that you entered. What was the first thing that you saw when you walked in? Now you checked in and you sat down in the waiting room and you're taking a look around. What are you seeing? What's hanging on the walls? What's playing on the TV? What's next to you that is available to read? What plants are in the room? The nurse calls your name and you go back to the exam room. What's that environment like? What if healthcare environments were organized around the promotion of health and healing? What would that look like? Imagine walking into the clinic, hospital, or other health organization to visit a healthcare professional, and the wall hangings are actually pictures of health promoting fruits, vegetables, beverages, and people who look like you in those pictures are consuming those health promoting fruits and vegetables. Imagine that the plants in the room are fruit or vegetable bearing, appropriately sized, of course, plants. Imagine that the reading materials next to you are health promoting reading materials. Let's take it a little step further. Imagine that in this healthcare environment, the vending machine, the food kiosks, and the cafeteria environments are all organized around promoting health and healing. Let's take it even a step further. The healthcare provider actually treats health conditions with prescriptions for healthful foods and other lifestyle measures. And you actually fill those prescriptions at the pharmacy. Oh, man. A lot of you are saying, yeah, but that would never happen. So let's take a step back in time. It's 1965, and a physician named Jack Geiger opens one of the first 2 community health centers in the United States in Mound Bayou, Mississippi. Malnutrition was rampant at the time. To treat malnutrition, Dr. Geiger and his colleagues decided to write prescriptions for food. Patients would fill their prescriptions at the center pharmacy. This is a little bit about a conversation or a little bit of the story from Dr. Geiger's perspective. Once we had the health center going, we started stocking food in the health center and distributing food, like drugs, to the people. A variety of officials got very nervous and they said, "You can't do that." And we said, "Why not?" And they said, "It's a health center pharmacy. It's supposed to carry drugs for the treatment of disease." And we said, the last time we looked in the book, the specific therapy for malnutrition was food. In addition, at the time, the health center actually recruited locally owned, Black-owned grocery stores to fill the prescriptions, and they were reimbursed from the health center pharmacy budget. And his work involved helping people start their own gardens to grow vegetables in their backyards. In addition, his work involved purchasing hundreds of acres of land in the community to grow vegetables, and it was community shared. So now let's fast forward back to the 21st century. In 2012, I was actually part of a movement to create health promoting environments in a clinical environment at Family Healthcare Center, where our vending machine was stocked with foods that met strict nutrition criteria for the promotion of health and healing, where we had a nutrition on the move food demonstration and testing cart in the waiting rooms, where patients and staff could taste health promoting foods, where we opened a lifestyle medicine department where patients could come to visit with healthcare professionals specializing in lifestyle measures to promote health and healing. We know that the environments that we live, work, play, seek care, and pray in influence our behaviors. So thinking about our environment's impact on our attitudes, values, beliefs, and subsequent behaviors related to food and nutrition is really important to community health. Together, let's envision and create health promoting environments in our health organizations, not as an anomaly, but as standard operating practice. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much for sharing those great things that you've all worked on and ideas for improving health in our community. So now we have some time for Q&A with Rory, Michelle, and Mary. You can share any ideas you have, anything that sparked, or just questions you have that you'd like them all to elaborate on. I'll get us started with a question. I feel like everything that you're saying, and I'd imagine that many in our audience are health-minded people, everything you're saying is like, duh, of course. Why wouldn't we support breastfeeding mothers? Why wouldn't we provide the healthiest food for our children? Why wouldn't healthcare centers be the epitome of health? So I know there's hundreds of reasons, but why don't we? What are the barriers that you hear from people in your work that they say they don't want to do these things in these different places, making the environment a healthier environment?
Oh boy.
And you don't have to go on forever, because I'm sure everyone could. Maybe just share
Okay,
one.
I'm not going to go on forever. Although I could. I could fill
I'm
3
sure.
hours and then some, right? I do it every week with Christina. She's like, seriously, do we have to go 3 hours? No. In the healthcare environment, really, it's organized around not prevention and not treatment with lifestyle. It's really, it's centered around, we all know this, treatment with medication and really it's reactionary care, right? So you come in, they assess, diagnose, and treat, and what's wrong with you, that kind of thing. And really, my work with family healthcare really taught me a lot in terms of, it's just not even conceptualized. I mean, it's almost like when I started speaking, I was from another planet, well, why wouldn't we have a vending machine that is only stocked with health promoting foods? And there's a little pushback, right? And one of the pushbacks is from a staff member. So a nurse practitioner who I was really close to came marching down the hall yelling, "Larson, who are you to keep my Diet Coke out of the vending machine?" And I'm like, whoa. And she and I were really close to each other. And I said, just continue bringing your own Diet Coke in. We're just not going to provide it, for the public and, that kind of thing. I'm not policing people. I'm just, our environment in the healthcare setting should be as healthy as possible. Because otherwise it's almost like it's unethical, So it's just not even conceptualized. It's, there aren't people around the table with some vision that are pushing this. That's why we see cupcake kiosks popping up in Sanford. It's like, what? Cupcakes in healthcare setting? So it really requires people with vision, people with some tenacity and, some gumption to take this and really be at the table and to really promote it.
So I'll speak briefly on the workplace side of things. In working with businesses, a lot of times I think it's difficult for them to see how supporting even one breastfeeding mom is beneficial for their business. And hard to see how the health of an infant, who obviously is not employed by this business, is important to support. But those breastfed babies tend to be healthier. So then you have parents who are missing work less often. They have lower healthcare costs, and employees really feel valued, and the morale among employees is higher. And so all in all, even though it might just be one infant, it's one infant. And if we do that across all businesses, we can support so many families. And I like to remind people too that moms don't breastfeed forever. This isn't something she's going to be doing for years and years and years. And so any way that you can, try to get behind these families and support them.
Well, in the worlds that I refer to, school concessions, it's much more convenient to offer prepackaged items. And often that environment is set up to make money for clubs. And so what's the simplest way we can make money? And I think often there isn't much thought about the role of a school is to educate and prepare people for a lifelong learning and health. And so often it undermines it, but simplicity is likely the reason that it doesn't happen more often. Perishable foods, healthier foods, it takes a little more thought, takes a little more planning. I might have a little bit of waste, and so those things are reasons that I've seen that it's not done more often. School lunch, that's complex, lots of forces, influences, cheap food, what's the least expensive way that we can feed our kids, and often it's found as it's perceived as what do we need to do to feed them so they can learn again, instead of seeing that as a time to learn habits of a lifetime. And whole grains might be a little harder to get, a little more expensive. Pizza, should it be considered a vegetable? I would question that, but some of our legislators succumbed to that lobby, and so it's a challenge with talking to our leaders to make sure that we want lunch to be the healthiest option. We want it to model the healthiest. We don't want it just to meet some sort of minimal standard, and that seems to maybe be what's happened. A lot of local food service directors have worked hard, even with that, to try to create healthy options.
Yeah, what was it, 2 tablespoons of pizza sauce?
Yeah,
Counted as a serving of vegetables?
Mm-hmm.
Peter?
I had a question. So one thing I'm not hearing in the conversation today, I think is a big part of this, is just the overall marketing of healthy foods, because you can offer all the healthiest choices in the world, but they're not going to take them or going to throw them. I go and have lunch with my first grader and my sixth grader once a month at their school, and in the middle school, it's appalling the choices that they have there for their, at the school for healthy things. And if there are vegetables and people take them or they bring them, that stuff gets thrown away a lot of the times. And you look at restaurants like Applebee's right now, they went from having healthy stuff to going back to comfort food, and they've never done better money-wise. So we can have the place and we can have the options, we can have the education in those spaces, but without the things coming up to that point to drive the demand, we're losing out.
Great points, Peter. Maybe Rory can speak to that, because you kind of talked about the 5 Ps and how to make these efforts actually successful. You can't just put the healthy food there and expect people to buy it.
It doesn't become nutritious until you eat it.
Yeah.
And so, but what we also know is that habits, it takes time to change. And so if I've been raised and my tongue is swimming in higher fat, salty, sweet foods, that's going to be what I prefer and what I'm accustomed to. And we do know that schools who have been successful have been really intentional about overcoming the challenge that you described, and it is very common. It's creating things, norms, subtle changes, taste opportunities, so kids can feel like they have a chance to have some input and some choice. And in schools that have been intentional about it, I think they have a much more rapid transition. We know that our youngest kids, who haven't been in the school systems for a long time, are much more willing and eager to accept changes. The older you are, the less likely you are. And so it's going to take some time, and I think we have to accept that it will take time, that it won't happen overnight. But those that are working hard at it, they've got taste tests, they're doing lots of things to normalize healthy foods.
And I would say those efforts can be successful. I still remember I was in 2nd grade and we had someone come talk about cholesterol, and we put salt in our hand rather than using the shaker. And I still remember and do that to this day through that. So those little things can make a big difference.
Michelle or Mary, did you have any comments about promotion and the marketing of foods? If you do.
Well, I'm keeping my head in the clinical environment, and I know that with a vending machine program, for example, it's not made very easy for organizations to stock a vending machine with healthy foods, with health promoting foods. So, for example, there was Fit and Smart, or there was some company that did stock healthy foods in a vending machine, but their foods didn't match our nutrition criteria. So we ended up saying, well, we're not going to go with a vendor. We're gonna purchase our own vending machine. We got some funding to do that. And we're gonna go to Costco and we're gonna go and look and find foods that meet our nutrition criteria. We're gonna put them in there and then we're gonna see which things sell, which things don't, and then we'll just keep, working on it from that perspective in terms of what's selling and what's going bad and that kind of thing. But we made a decision, and we meaning it wasn't just me, it was this whole group of people. It was probably 12 people in the wellness committee. And I asked them, I'm like, are we gonna go all in here? So healthy drinks means no diet pop? And they said, we're gonna go all in. We wanna go all in. What's that gonna look like? I'm like, okay. So we went all in, and I was at the time, I was a diet pop drinker, so I'm like, okay. But part of it is in the healthcare environment, if that is what is available and people are hungry, then they're gonna go to that vending machine, they're gonna find something to try, right? Or they're not. And we're not gonna control that, but that we controlled what we could and marketed it within our own building.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Roger.
I go to IMA, and IMA just opened a new facility at 45th and 32nd. In their lobby, off to the side, where would have been a pharmacy, is now health foods.
What is IMA?
Internal Medicine Associates. They're independent doctors. Dr. Lillistahl started it. There is health magazines around the lobby. Their new facility is, and they have a dietitian. Your physician gets you with a dietitian right there on their staff. Took 16 pounds off so far. But they're there, they're doing a little bit different than what some of the others doing, what you said.
Yeah.
You need to visit when we get more pictures up there of the stuff. It's a different feeling than you get going to the major.
It sounds like.
Well, and that brings up a great point. I was gonna ask you guys, what are some of the most promising things that you see happening in the community right now? Whether it be businesses, organizations, systems that are really supporting this idea of a healthy food environment at a community level, or just good things you're seeing happening right now.
So in the breastfeeding world and businesses, we're actually seeing businesses who might be doing a new build or relocating or remodeling, being mindful and intentional about putting a breastfeeding or a nursing mother space in their buildings. And years ago, I don't think that was really ever a thought. And so we have people reaching out to us and saying, hey, this is what we're doing. What does our space need? And Fargo Cass also does have mini grants for businesses in Cass County to be able to purchase things like a nice glider, a mini fridge, things to equip the space to really be conducive of a supportive environment. And so we're seeing that a little bit more and more with some businesses in Cass County, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and in the healthcare world, there are some really good examples going on across the nation in relationship to food, where they're connecting CSAs and other growers and food shares, if you will, being offered within healthcare environments, especially for people who are lower income and don't have access to foods like that very easily. And so there's some stuff going on at Hennepin County Medical Center. They're actually quite advanced in terms of what they've tried and what they're doing around health and food. There's some things going on the East Coast that I know about. And I'm there's also a movement that's been going on for quite a long time, and it's like, it's kind of that first do no harm, but it's related to do no harm, and it's around food service environments within healthcare. And so it's sustainable, getting things that are locally grown and sustainable, having low waste, and really promoting health and nutrition through their food service environments. And so that's a national movement as well.
A couple things. Locally, if you're familiar with the Southeast Education Cooperative, they provide education services to many of the schools in Southeast North Dakota. They provide culinary training for school food service staff. And so if you know school food service, over the years it had really become much about heat and serve, and there weren't skills in that profession to cook from scratch. And so that's something that's growing, and it's been adopted by some of our local schools. And there's also a local program called Child Care Alive, a woman a dietitian by the name of Crystal McNeil, who's done a lot of work with child care providers to help kids develop real positive relationships with food at an early age. And so, you know, it's not about the broccoli so much, but maybe about getting comfortable and developing habits. And so if you've never been exposed to a raspberry, it might be a little bit furry, it might have some seeds in it, it might be something that I'm not so comfortable with. So I'm gonna explore it, I'm gonna touch it, I'm gonna smell it, I might squish it. And she does a lot of now maybe this isn't for our group, but things that are gonna allow a child to get comfortable with the food, because the more comfortable they are, the more likely they're gonna be able to make that part of their life. And we say, and become adventurous tasters for a lifetime.
Travis.
Yeah, kind of a two-part question, but I might just answer one. How familiar are you guys looking at the bricks count in the healthy foods that you're trying to promote? Because right now, from a culinary perspective, the bricks system or the bricks count is, and that's the sugar within the actual fruit or vegetable, and it encompasses not only just what we think of sugars, but the nutritional value of that vegetable. So chefs are equating that to flavor right now. The higher the brick system, the more flavorful the food, but that's also being tailored into the overall nutrition. And just a brief example is that Blue Hill Stone Barns rated a carrot that was from Sam's Club or whatever, and then one that they grew. And they found that the Sam's Club carrot had 0.0 bricks, and the other one had like 9.3, which is the highest rating right now. So what they found was that even though it is a carrot, it doesn't have any nutritional value, where the other one actually does. So are you guys focusing on that, especially in the health system, as we look at that first layer of defense being how good our food is in nutrition? So wondering if that has any.
I'm not even sure, how do you measure a brick?
It's they have a thing called a refractometer, I think. It's a molecular measurement system. So they look at the molecules of it, and then they'll measure it from there.
Interestingly enough, a lot of ranchers will do that in their pastures and fields to know how nutritious the grass is for their livestock.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I make
So-
a comment on
Absolutely.
that?
It's true.
So I think that is a fascinating thing to dive more into for a very educated, privileged group of society that has that ability to think about their food at that level. We know that only 2% of Americans eat the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables. And so when we're looking across the board and trying to get people to eat a more nutritious diet, not like as Dr. Katz said, not complicating the message so much, but just thinking eat foods, mostly plants, not too much. You can get fruits and vegetables in fresh, canned, dried, all sorts of different forms, and trying to get that message out. But for those who have that time and ability to look into that, fascinating. Completely agree. Bill.
I've got a question for Rory and Mary, but I'll do Michelle first. What size of organizations I was thinking about, like where I work in my organization, and I'm trying to think when we've had a nursing mother there and on our staff, and in talking about like setting up a space for it, like there's nobody to use it right now, and how do you think about that in terms of trying to encourage this accommodation?
Well, I think it's encouraging that you're thinking about it, even if there isn't another currently there. In my experience working with businesses, it has been with businesses who have needed a space or who have had employees who would need to come back to work and breastfeed. The spaces that are used for nursing mothers don't solely need to be a nursing mother's room. So if it's set up that way, it doesn't have to be that way forever. And so I encourage everybody to continue to think about what a potential space might look like, but doesn't mean you have to go out of the way right now to create a space if you don't have anybody to use it? Maybe not. But something that doesn't require actual physical space would be considering a breastfeeding policy. And that can be put in any business. It's something that is sustainable and will remain no matter who is in leadership, and that will be supportive across the board and isn't a physical space if there isn't a warm body to fill it.
All right, we have run out of time today, but we need to wrap up with one final question, and that is the one we end every first Friday with. What can we do to support you? You all shared great ways to support a healthy food environment in different places. So what can this audience do to help move some of that forward? And maybe we'll start with Mary and work our way back.
Oh man, I would say that in terms of being part of helping to envision and create health promoting healthcare organizational spaces, some of the really important things is to advocate for that within your own, when you see your provider, and ask about lifestyle measures, ask about, even ask about serving on the board, if you can, of a healthcare organization. Oftentimes providers are really wary of lifestyle measures and talking with patients about lifestyle measures because they think patients don't want to talk about that. But what we know is patients actually do want to talk about that. So I would say to be an advocate for, for some change within your own healthcare organizations that you go to, making suggestions where you can, and becoming involved in leadership roles if you're able to on boards and things like that, so that you can be a voice to that. So I think you can do it from an individual perspective, but you can also, if you're in a position to be in more of a leadership role, can be advocating for those things as well.
In the breastfeeding world, similar to what I presented on earlier, is just to kind of assess the environments that you're in and what does your own workplace look like, the environments that you frequent. And be open-minded, and even if you feel comfortable being an advocate for a breastfeeding mom or a breastfeeding family, encourage her or thank her if you're comfortable with that. But even if you maybe aren't at that level of comfort, just ask that you don't discourage a mother or a family. Everybody's just trying to do the best that they can. But think about your own spaces and how they can be conducive to breastfeeding families.
Yeah, I would echo to think about your circle of influence, where you, what worlds you find yourself in. If you're a soccer mom or a dad, then maybe you're volunteering to suggest what we might plan for healthy snacks this year, and provide suggestions, but then positively be involved. If it's in your school, what I hear is if people don't speak up, we don't know. And I think there's a kind, positive way to do so. Do you have any healthy options, or what's your healthiest option at a concession? Maybe that's the first time they've ever been asked that, and maybe that'll stick on their mind. So be that positive voice to help normalize healthy eating. And I want to add one caveat. We know with kids that saying something's healthy doesn't necessarily make them want to eat that. In the lunchroom example, when they called the food burrito, they didn't really eat a whole lot of it. When they called it the big bad bean burrito, they ate them all up. And so being healthy isn't necessarily the only saying that, but finding things that might resonate with whomever it is you're trying to influence.
Awesome. Would you all please join me in thanking these great speakers?